ॐ वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभं निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। अथ प्रथमोऽध्यायः।
अथ प्रथमोऽध्यायः।
We have completed reading the first chapter of the Gita. It has 47 shlokas. Chapter started with the Dhritarashtra Uvacha and then Sanjaya Uvacha. Within Sanjaya Uvacha, there was Arjuna Uvacha. So Arjuna was the main person of this chapter who spoke at length, who lamented at length, and at the end, having thrown his bow and arrow, he sat on the chariot not knowing what to do. So Visrajya Sasharam Chapam Shokasam Vignamanasah iti Sanjaya concluded. So the first chapter ended. And as we saw in the last class, every chapter has the title, the chapter number, title, and at the end of every chapter, there is a vakyam, there is a line, which tells that Gita is a Upanishad, it teaches Brahma Vidya, and Gita is a Yoga Shastram, and that is in the form of dialogue between Bhagavan Krishna and Arjuna, and the name of the chapter and the number of the chapter number. So this is the format. So that we have to see for the first chapter. The first chapter of the Gita ends with these words. Let us read this. Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat.
Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu.
Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu.
Brahma Vidyayam.
Brahma Vidyayam.
Yoga Shastre.
Yoga Shastre.
Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade.
Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade.
Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama Prathamodhyayaha.
Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama Prathamodhyayaha.
This line indicates the end of the first chapter. So, first chapter named Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which is in the form of dialogue between Bhagavan Krishna and Arjuna. And this dialogue is in the Bhagavad Gita, which has the status of the Upanishad. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishad. So, Bhagavad Gita Upanishad. It has the status of Shruti. Therefore, only it is called Gita. Srilingam. Shruti is Srilinga. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita. And it is Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre. It is Brahma Vidya, it teaches Brahma Vidya and also Yoga Shastram. That is Karma Yoga Shastram. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat. Tat, that is Sat. Tat referring to Brahma. Om Brahma is Sat, Satyam, Brahma Satyam. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So in the Bhagavad Gita, which is an Upanishad, Upanishad Su. Why Upanishads? Because 18 chapters are there. So each chapter, except the first chapter, second chapter onwards, teaching is involved. Therefore, Upanishads. In the Brahma Vidya, it teaches Brahma Vidya. Therefore, Brahma Vidya. Therefore, only Upanishad. Therefore, only Bhagavad Gita enjoys status of Upanishad because it teaches Brahma Vidya and also Yoga Shastra, Karma Yoga Shastra. In the Karma Yoga Shastra, in the Brahma Vidya, and it is in the form of dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, and the chapter named Arjuna Vishada Yoga, that is first chapter. Thus ends the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the first chapter, Arjuna's sorrow in the Bhagavad Gita, which is in the form of a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, which is the essence of the Upanishads, that is Brahma Vidya, whose subject matter is both the knowledge of Brahman, that is Brahma Vidya, and Yoga, Karma Yoga. Traditionally, the words Om Tat Sat go before this line. Om is the name for Brahman, Brahma. Om. And Brahma is the reality, Tat, Sat, Sat. Reality, Sat. Trikale yat tishtati, Tat, Sat. So Brahma is Satyam. And that Brahma is, as is indicated by the word Om. Om is the Shabda Pratika for Brahma. This expression indicates a conclusion. After all is said and done, the reality is only Brahma. Om Tat Sat. The word Srimad means that which is endowed with all kinds of wealth, including Vidya, that which gives you everything. Shri is wealth. Srimat, endowed with Shri. Shri meaning wealth. And wealth includes Vidya also. Vidya is also wealth, Dhanam, Vidya Dhanam. And that Vidya gives everything. And Vidya gives, finally, Vidya gives everything. It gives moksha. Moksha is what one is searching through in and through all the Purushartha. So that Vidya is also is wealth, knowledge wealth. The word Srimad here prefixed to Bhagavad Gita and it is used for emphasis. Shri means all wealth and Shriman means Shriman can be the title for the Guru. Shriman. Shriman is Vidyavan, Shriman, the one who is endowed with the knowledge, wealth is called Shriman. Here Bhagavan plays the role of Guru. Bhaka is the sixfold absolute virtues as we have seen before. And Bhagavan is therefore the one who has absolute Shri. Bhagaha asya asti iti Bhagavan. Bhagavan is one who has got all the sixfold virtues. Aishwaryasya samagrasya. Here he mentions here Aishwaryasya samagrasya dhiryasya yashashashriyaha jnana vairagyoschaiva shanna bhaga itirana. The sixfold qualities one who has is called Bhagavan. The sixfold qualities is indicated by the word Bhaga. Bhaga is the sixfold absolute virtues, and Bhagavan is therefore one who has absolute Shri. All wealth belongs to Bhagavan, as does all knowledge, fullness, dispassion, overlordship, power, fame. These are the sixfold Bhaga. The one who has these virtues, Bhaga, is called Bhagavan, is called Ishvara, the Lord, otherwise called Bhagavan. Thus, Bhagavan is a definition of Ishvara. And the one who can really be called as Shriman is Bhagavan alone. And here the teaching of Bhagavan is Bhagavad Gita, therefore Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This title of Srimad is used here because Bhagavan has assumed the role of a teacher in the Gita. We are going to see this in the second chapter, Bhagavan Krishna It's not no more. It will not be any more charioteer Krishna. It will be Bhagavan Krishna, Bhagavan, and he assumes the role of the teacher, the acharya, the guru for Arjuna. So therefore, Bhagavan, Bhagaha, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, iti. The chapters and the verses of the Bhagavad Gita have the same vision as that of the Upanishads. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita is referred to as Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, Su Upanishadsu, Bhagavad Gita Upanishad. The reference being to the Gita that is yet to come, since the actual Gita has not yet begun. Actual Gita meaning the actual teaching of the Gita. Teaching is going to start in the second chapter alone. The Upanishads are the self-knowledge, Atma Jnanam, that destroys samsara, all sorrow. The Gita also destroys sorrow. Therefore, only Gita Upanishad. Gita also enjoys the status of being an Upanishad. By giving Arjuna self-knowledge, the Gita removed his sorrow. That is highlighted in the first chapter. Sorrow is highlighted in the first chapter. That is the context for Gita to take place. Therefore, the Gita is equated to the Upanishads, whose subject matter is Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of Brahma, the same subject matter as that of the Upanishads. The Gita is not simple psychotherapy. It is much more than that. It deals with what Brahma is, revealing the reality of the self as Brahma, Atma as Brahma. Being identical to the Upanishads in terms of its subject matter, the Gita cannot but be Brahma Vidya, knowledge of Brahma. It is also Yoga Shastra because it talks about yoga, Karma Yoga for maturity, for preparing the mind for the knowledge. Therefore, it is Yoga Shastra. Here, yoga is not Patanjali Yoga. Here, it is Karma Yoga, Karma Yoga Shastra. So, therefore, Gita is Yoga Shastram as well as Brahma Vidya. Yoga Shastram for preparing the mind, and Brahma Vidya for knowledge, and therefore moksha. Therefore, complete. Gita is complete by itself. Yoga Shastra means Karma Yoga Shastra, which includes all disciplines, values, religious rituals, prayers, and so on. So it includes karma as well as upasana. Of course, Panchamaha Yajna, values, disciplines, etc. Performing duties is yoga. Yoga is doing what is to be done, being harmony with the order by doing what is to be done. That is yoga. Here, yoga, it is not yoga asana. Yoga asana is different. Yoga as a spiritual practice. Also, when the Gita talks about bhakti, it is yoga. When it talks about karma to be done with bhakti, it is all karma yoga. Even when it talks about sannyasa, it is jnana yoga. Since sannyasa also can be a means for an end to be achieved, it is yoga. Sannyasa as an end is a knowledge that I am Brahma and not a karta or bhokta. All of this will be analyzed later. Therefore, yoga, all the way it is yoga only. Jnana yoga, karma yoga. In fact, there is only two yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga. Any other yoga other than jnanam, they all come under karma yoga only. Karma yoga meant for maturity, for preparation of the mind, for jnanam, and therefore jnana yoga. Jnana yoga for Brahma Vidya. So therefore Gita is Yoga Shastram, Brahma Vidya, teaches Brahma Vidya. The Gita then is both Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra, which is purely Yoga Shastra, which is purely Karma Yoga, implying devotion as well as other disciplines that are used as a means for preparing the mind for knowledge. Also included in this closing line are the words in the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade, as the Upanishad's teaching in the form of dialogue between the Guru and the disciple. Similarly, here also between the Guru, and here the Guru happens to be Bhagavan Krishna, and the disciple is Arjuna. Therefore, Krishna Arjuna Sambhade. This is because the dialogue had already been started in the first chapter. The subject matter of this chapter was Arjuna's lamentation, his sorrow, his grief, his despair, his despondency. Therefore, thus the title, The Yoga of Arjuna's Sorrow, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Of course, the title of the chapter doesn't imply the first yoga where the practice is sorrow. That is not the meaning here. Here, the word here, Arjuna Vishada Yoga means yoga is context. Yoga meaning context. The word yoga has various meanings as can be seen from the synonyms given in dictionaries. Yoga is chittavirti nirodha, control or mastery, according to Patanjali. It also means upaya, a means of achieving something. Any form of meditation, dhyana, is called yoga. And a connection, sangati, meaning a subject matter, vishaya, is also called yoga. So here Arjuna Vishada Yoga is here the subject matter of the first chapter. Subject matter of the first chapter is the sorrow of Arjuna. That is the meaning of the word yoga. Not it is Chittavarti Nirodha, not Dhyana Yoga, not Karma Yoga, not in that sense. There is no yoga as a spiritual practice involved in the first chapter. First chapter, the subject matter, the context is Arjuna Vishada. That is the meaning of the word yoga. Arjuna Vishada Yoga is the. Each of the 18 chapters of the Gita has the word yoga in its title, beginning with Arjuna's sorrow, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Next chapter is Sankhya Yoga, then Karma Yoga, Jnana Karma Yoga, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Iti. Therefore, the correct meaning of the word yoga here meaning the first chapter is Sangati, connection or subject matter. That is the meaning of the word yoga. Yoga has got various meanings. Here, the subject matter is the meaning of the word yoga. For instance, in the fifth chapter, Jnana Karma Sannyasa is a Vishaya, the subject matter, which is not to suggest that it talks about a yoga called Jnana Karma Sannyasa is to be practiced. Gita talks about karma, about knowledge, sannyasa, meditation, devotion, the vision of the cosmic person, the division between the knower and the known, etc. What is the division? Is there a division? This is the topic of the 13th chapter called Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga. So, subject matter. Subject matter of the fifth chapter is Jnana Karma Sannyasa. Subject matter of the 13th chapter is Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga. So, subject matter. So, yoga meaning Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, only two yoga. That is to be practiced. Other the names are title of the subject matter of the chapter. Thus, the word yoga then in the first chapter titles doesn't refer to the practice of yoga, but to the subject matter, sangati, vishaya. This must be clearly understood because there is a lot of confusion about its meaning. Some people maintain that despair is necessary, and without it, we cannot come to spiritual life. It's not like that. People come to spiritual life out of maturity. They understand that what they search for is not available in any of the pursuit, only in moksha, then they come to spiritual life. So, therefore, not despair is necessary. Thus, we must work ourselves into despair. Despair is not something we need to work for. Everyone has it. When we have to go to the 10th floor of the building and find out that the elevator is not working, despair begins. Therefore, despair need not be practiced. We are despair, or we are in despair, or we are born of despair alone. We are brought up in despair, continue to be in despair, and are despair to be everyone else. Therefore, the purpose of this first chapter of the Gita was to describe a particular style of thinking which will lead to self-knowledge or prajna. How you think, what leads you to a particular type of thinking, what kind of heart you must have in order to do this inquiry, vichara. All that is necessary to know. Therefore, the chapter reveals Arjuna's nobility, his commitment to dharma, as well as his confusion with regard to dharma adharma. A mature person can be confused. Therefore, Arjuna's confusion represents anyone's confusion. Therefore, we are also, like Arjuna, many times in life have this confusion. Therefore, Vyasacharya beautifully presents the confusion of Arjuna, which is normal, which is common, which is commonly experienced by any individual. This confusion can lead to a certain type of thinking and to questions about what I really am. A person has to led to this type of thinking, which is why a chapter about Arjuna's despair was included in the Gita. The context is so beautiful. It's a context which everyone would have experienced at some point in life. Therefore, Dasacharya beautifully presented it as a first chapter of the Gita, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. This chapter is important, though it doesn't have the teaching, but since provides a context, therefore it is also important. Only when the reader identifies with the Arjuna, then only he can become like Arjuna and ask for the knowledge and listen to the teaching. Therefore, chapter is important. This chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. When Shankaracharya wrote his Gita Bhashya, his commentary on the Gita, he ignored this chapter and the first few verses of the second chapter. Why? Because no teaching involved. A Bhashya comments only on that which requires explanation. The first chapter and the second chapter, few shloka, doesn't require any explanation. Therefore, Bhashyakara, Shankaracharya, did not write commentary on it. Because the beginning of the Gita can easily be understood simply by reading by anyone who is able to understand Shankara's Bhashya, he restricted his commentary to that which had to be discussed, the Gita itself, starting with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, that is the 11th shloka of the second chapter, from where the teaching starts. Therefore, the subject matter of the first chapter then leads to the second chapter. Arjuna's Vishada is despair, led to his Vichara, his inquiry, which Vishada can lead one either to inquiry or to escape, including suicide, death being another means of escape. So Vishada to Vichara, that is the context. Dukkam to inquiry, despair to inquiry. The person is in despair, therefore he intelligently takes to inquiry with the help of the teacher. In Arjuna's case, it led him to Vichara, Vishada to Vichara. The later chapters are Vichara, in the form of inquiry, in the form of asking questions and clarifying, gaining knowledge, Vichara. This chapter is Vishada. In Arjuna's case, it led him to Vichara. Krishna made sure that it did, and therefore we have the Gita. Therefore, Om Tat Sat, iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama Prathamodhyayah. First chapter concluded. Now we enter into the chapter 2, Ditiyodhyayah, which begins with the words of Sanjaya. Sanjaya continues. Sanjaya spoke these words to Dhritarashtra. Let us read. Sanjaya Uvacha
Sanjay Uvacha
Tam Tatha Kripaya Vishtam
Tam Tatha Kripaya Vishtam
Ashrupurna Kulekshanam
Ashrupurna Kulekshanam
Vishidantamidam Vakyam
Vishidantamidam Vakyam
Vacha Madhusudanaha.
Uvacha Madhusudanaha.
So Sanjaya Uvacha, Sanjaya spoke these words. So he says, Tam Tata Kripaya Avishtam, O Arjuna, who was overpowered by Kripa, overwhelmed by compassion, and therefore his eyes were filled with tears. Ashru Purna Akula Ikshanam, his vision, his eyes were completely filled with tears. Completely filled with tears, not out of joy, but out of dukkam, sorrow. Ashrupurna Akula, Ikshanam, his sight, his eyes shows distress, Akula, confusion, perplexed. And Ashru is tears. Purna is filled. So his eyes were filled with tears and it, it shows dukkam, confusion. Vishidam, that is dukkitam, who is sad. Idam Vakyam, these words, Madhusudanaha, that is Bhagavan Krishna. He has got the name Madhusudanaha. He killed the Rakshasa named Madhu. Or Madhu can be one's ego. He is a destroyer of ego. So, Madhusudanaha, Shri Krishnaha, Idam Vakyam Uvacha, he spoke these words. What words is going to say? Sanjay is going to say. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha will come. So Sanjaya said, to him who was sad and thus overwhelmed with compassion, whose eyes were filled with tears and showed distress, Krishna spoke these words. The use of the third person in this verse reminds us that Sanjaya, the narrator of the Gita, was continuing his report to Dhritarashtra. The dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, on the other hand, is always the first person and second person. So here you can see Madhusudanaha, Tam, Arjunam, Uvacha. So he uses third person because it is reported by Sanjaya. So second person and first person you will see when there is a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. First person, second person, Uttama Purusha and Madhyama Purusha. Whereas when Sanjaya speaks, it is in Prathama Purusha, third person. As the second chapter begins, Krishna, referred to as Madhusudana, had been listening very patiently to Arjuna. So in first chapter, Arjuna spoke. Krishna had been listening very patiently. Because he knew the importance of listening, he let Arjuna talk. First, Arjuna has to exhaust himself completely by talking, letting out whatever he has in his mind. So Krishna was patiently listening. He didn't stop Arjuna. Like a therapist also listens a lot and nods his or her head at the appropriate time, speaking only enough to keep the person talking, letting the person talking, allowing the person to talk. People don't generally listen in this way. They begin advising right away and don't know how to listen. Krishna was a very good listener. He had already listened to one complete chapter spoken by Arjuna, patiently listening. Only when Arjuna laid down his bow, arrows, and sat back in the chariot did Krishna think it was time for him to respond. When Arjuna was exhausted, then when he sat down, then Krishna started responding. It's going to say now. Bhagavan Vacha is going to come, but not the teaching. Teaching will come only in the 11th shloka. Teaching will come only when Arjuna asks for the teaching. So here, teaching will not start. Bhagavan Krishna will speak, but not that he will not give the teaching now. He will rebuke, he will scold Arjuna and ask him to get up and fight. The word Madhu in the name Madhusudana refers to the ego. It means honey. Madhu means honey. So ego is dear to everyone, very sweet. It means honey means something which is very dear to you, very sweet. The ahankara, the ego is very dear to us. Therefore, everyone wants to boost this ahankara. No one wants to give it up. We have already seen that destroyer of Madhusudana refers to Krishna as the destroyer of demons. The ego here can be seen as a demon. Therefore, the one whose grace destroys ahankara, the one knowing whom the ahankara is destroyed, is called Madhusudana. Madhun Nama Rakshasam Ahankaram Sudayati iti Madhusudana. He destroys the Rakshasa called Ahankara, which is Madhu, dear for all of us. Therefore, Madhusudana. How he destroys? By knowledge. There is no physical destruction. By jnanena, by teaching. Therefore, Madhusudana. All we can literally take that Krishna destroyed the Rakshasa by the name Madhu. Arjuna was described as being overwhelmed, overpowered by sympathy, compassion, and affection. His eyes were filled with tears because he had placed himself in such a situation. There was more here than mere compassion. There was conflict also because of his sense of duty. Arjuna was confused about having to destroy people who were his gurus and relatives. Therefore, confusion born conflicts. Because he was a man of discipline, Arjuna did not allow the tears to flow. There are three reasons why one's eyes can be filled with tears. Pepper can certainly do in the kitchen. When you are ecstatic, also you shed tears. When you are sad, also tears can well up. Any disease causing tears is usually due to an irritation and is therefore covered under the first of these three. Thus, the tear glands are stimulated by these kinds of situations. We know that Arjuna's tears were not due to ecstasy because he was described here as the one who was sad, Vishada, Dukkita. Therefore, Arjuna, who was sad, whose eyes were glistening with tears, and whose heart was overwhelmed by compassion, was being addressed by Sri Bhagavan Madhusudanaha. The word Vakya usually means a sentence, a group of words, but here it refers to the whole subject matter of this particular section. So idam vakyam Madhusudanaha uvacha tam Arjunam uvacha. What are those vakyam? What are those words? What did the Lord say? That is the second shloka of this chapter, which you will see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanta Shanta Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi
हरि ओम
Om.
धन्यवादः
Dhanyavadaha.